Welcome back to the Boardman Black and Gold podcast with Zane and David, live from Boardman, Ohio, for the second time this season, I think. When did we do that one recently?
Was it? I think it was after the Seattle game.
I think it was before the Seattle game. It was right after week 1.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah. Because we both predicted, or did you? Yeah, we both predicted a win.
Yeah.
Right here. Yeah, I remember that.
Yep. So we're back at the table in David's basements. We just recorded an episode with David's dad on the state of the Steelers. That's going to be our bye week episode, so make sure you tune into that one. That one's going to be a great episode.
Yeah, very excited about that one.
That one's going to be one you're going to want to tune in for. We'll release that one next week, so please keep an eye out for that one. If you want updates on the podcast, you can always follow us at Boardman and Gold on Instagram. That's where we kind of give a lot of our updates for the podcast, as well as give you guys an opportunity to just give your thoughts on what's going on and, maybe strike down some of the opinions that we have. Because I feel like the two of us, we agree with each other in most ways, but we disagree in some ways, but I feel like we're pretty similar in our mindsets.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I don't even, I haven't really thought about it, but you're right. We do tend to, whenever you say, or I'll say, I disagree, I'm always like, whoa. I'm like, what? So yeah, we do agree on a lot of stuff. So, and I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of different opinions, so we'd love to hear them.
We would love to hear them. So if you do have an opinion on something that we say, or even something that we don't say, let us know. Send us a DM at Boardman and Gold on Instagram, and we'd love to, field those, opinions or those questions on the podcast at some point. But for this week, we have to talk about the Steelers' 24-21 victory in Dublin over the Minnesota Vikings. Very polarizing game. Polarizing game.
Absolutely. And before we talk about the game, I want to preface by saying, last week we both dogged on the international games a lot. And the Steelers haven't had one since 2013. I barely even remember that game. And, they're always at inconvenient times. So, I was always I don't like international games. But this game was pretty awesome. I will admit, the music they were playing in between commercials was, all, from Ireland and all that stuff. And that was super cool. And just kind of seeing that culture and seeing the stadium absolutely packed. I was like, okay, you know what? I'll eat my words. This is pretty awesome. I like it.
Well, and two, we got Joe Davis and Greg Olsen on the broadcast.
Which is awesome because that was another thing I feel like is you kind of get guys who don't broadcast and who end up broadcasting. When an NFL Network game covers it up, I love Rich Eisen. I love Kurt Warner. But their job is not broadcasting. So when they're thrown into that role, it's definitely kind of an adjustment for them. And you can kind of tell it's a little bit it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like an NFL game like the normal announcers. So it was really cool. I remember when we started the recording because we were a little late, I heard Joe Davis's voice and I was like, what? I was like, he's here? That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. It was a great game. And we had a lot of really interesting quotes, I think, from Greg Olsen early on. Go to your notes because I wrote down a couple of them, right down in my notes. Very early in the game when they were kind of introducing the two teams, there was a couple that Greg Olsen was talking about. One, I think, on the offense and then the other on the defense. Do you have those there?
Let me see. Okay. So you have a couple of things from Joe Davis. Joe Davis, at the beginning of the game in the intro, said nothing positive about the Steelers, offensively or defensively. Then Joe Davis said, that's what they do. This is what they do. Or this is what they have to do.
In pertaining to the Jalen Ramsey, what we thought was going to be a scoop and score. So that was what happened. And they were kind of talking about the Steelers, how they almost rely on defensive turnovers and creating those turnovers.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because we said last week against the Patriots, we're like, if we don't have 5 takeaways in that game, do we win that one at all? Probably not. In fact, we probably lose by 2 scores. Joe Davis is leading off with this and saying the Steelers win by having these turnovers. And, he didn't say it necessarily directly, but in a roundabout way, it was if they don't get the turnovers, then they're in trouble.
Yeah. Oh, and I completely agree. I was kind of loving what they were saying because I'm like, this is what I'm thinking. Thank you for saying that. And then we have a Greg Olsen thing where it says there was a seam pass to DK for 10 yards. And it said Greg Olsen really likes how we're moving him around and getting the ball in his hands, which we talked about actually in this future podcast, but how we loved how they, first half only, they worked the scheme where DK Metcalf was getting forced the ball, which was awesome.
And it was in a little bit of a different setup than we were used to seeing, I think, earlier in the year. And obviously, that 80-yard touchdown ripping the seam like straight up the gut, just a light little slant route, getting him the ball in space, which is something that we both wanted the Steelers to do, coming into this game. And they did that very effectively in the first half. I mean, I thought that the offense looked incredible to start the ball game.
Yeah.
The first play of the game was a sack, and then after that they kind of settled in, and then they really started moving the ball, and a lot of it was because of DK Metcalf and just getting him the ball.
Yeah, which I think was awesome and so good to see. And yeah, like that first play, I was like, oh, here we go again. Like I'm pretty sure he came off unblocked, just a miscommunication assignment between. It really just looked like Samalu didn't block anyone. And so that was unfortunate. And I think that we're still in our O-line struggles as far as like pressure to the QB goes. But I will say that I do see some improvement. Specifically Broderick Jones. I think that he's improved a lot, and he's really making me start to like him, actually. Like I think it was later in the game, I think it was at least second half, where or it might have been right before half, but Aaron Rodgers ran the ball, and he was getting tackled, and a Vikings guy punched it right out of Aaron Rodgers' hand, and it bounced up. And because Broderick Jones was following the play and following his quarterback, he just caught it right like in stride and got like 5 more yards. And then when Calvin Austin got hurt, I'm pretty sure it was Austin, Broderick Jones was the first guy there, like checking on him and stuff. So he really seems like a good team player, and like he's improved a lot. So I'm liking that. And yeah, again, was it no sacks?
There was 2 sacks.
2 sacks. Oh, right. Well, the first one.
Yeah.
So the first sack.
There was one later in the game, which I don't remember necessarily.
Okay. I think I remember because it was like horse collars allowed inside the pocket, and I think it was some sort of like horse collar.
Okay.
But I think that overall they performed better. Still, they need to be a lot better. But I think there was improvement.
I think so too. And Rodgers was still getting the ball out very quick in this game. So he wasn't really giving the Vikings defense a whole lot of time to get to him, which, I mean, the Vikings defense has been very, very good this early on in the year. So to see them game planning for that is encouraging. And I thought the first half play calling was setting us up to win, which ultimately it did. And especially in the first half, I mean, we were up big in the first half.
Absolutely. I think that, our first half performance was awesome. I think that we played really well offensively. Yeah, it looked like we maybe game planned a bit. And, like, this is a good Vikings defense. Like, the announcers couldn't say enough good stuff about Brian Flores and, like, how good they played. And we obviously know what they did the week prior. So I think that it was really encouraging to see what we were able to do, especially on the run game, too. Like, I was really worried with Jalen Warren being out, and, like, neither of us have been high on Kenneth Gainwell, but he played so well. I mean, and this is another thing that's encouraging about the O-line is that, like, there was some movement, and he got a lot of good chunk plays. And I don't know what you think about this, but I'm going to throw out this idea. I don't know when Jalen Warren comes back, but when he does, I would love to see, like, I remember the only year that Le'Veon Bell and James Conner were together, it was Conner's rookie year. And, Bell was the main guy, and he was the shifty, let me wait and see, make the cut, go. And James Conner was like, give me the ball, bam, I'm gone, 15 yards every carry. And I think Jalen Warren plays a lot like Conner, and seeing this last week, Gainwell plays like Bell, the way he's waiting, cutting, looking, and then goes. I would really love to see some more parity between those two, because I think that those run styles are so opposite that it messes with defenders, especially when that speed guy gets in there when you're used to the pause, cut, and things like that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was very shocking to wake up to that Jalen Warren news. I mean, I don't think anybody was ready for that. I mean, we weren't ready when we recorded the episode. I mean, I didn't even hear anything the night before. I mean, I just kind of woke up and was like, oh, Jalen Warren's not playing. And I thought Kenneth Gainwell, I mean, he did a very nice job, kind of coming in relief in that. 19 carries for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was, I think, the third or fourth best fantasy start this week.
Yeah, which is crazy.
It was wild. And he had a couple of catches as well in the ball game. And he had a couple of, like, just on first down, just 10-yard runs to get another first down, which we've not seen at all this year.
No, which is super exciting. So, I'm very pleased with his performance, and I'm hopeful for the way we use him in the future. And I do want to say, nothing but positive things to say about him. I do want to say, though, Caleb Johnson did get a few carries. I think that everybody in the whole world is really sour on him right now because of that fumble kick thing. But he did fine when he got the ball. You know, he had one really good run that I do remember. And I think that so I just wanted to say really quickly that like he didn't do bad. He was fine. But I think that something that I noticed, I'm sure everyone else noticed, but we really fell in love with the pitch play. Like we pitched the ball a ton. I think there must have been something that we were seeing on like the outside pitches because there was a lot that went to Gainwell, a couple that went to Johnson, and all of them resulted in I think 5 or more yards. So it's nice that we seem to be figuring some things out within our offense that like, oh, at least in the first half, get the ball to DK. Oh, run it this way. Like it seemed like there was a bit more formation to our offense of like, we're not just haphazardly calling plays, but we're putting plays together.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that's a credit to kind of what Arthur Smith has been doing. And I've been happy with him this year. Again, the only game I haven't been able to watch was that Patriots week, which I feel like was his worst week scheme-wise.
Yeah.
But, I mean, 3 out of 4, I feel like he's doing a half-decent job.
Yeah.
So, which is something that's going to have to continue if we're going to be successful this season. And I think, you know, with the defense stepping up this week, you kind of had the marriage of both sides of the ball kind of figuring it out at the same time this week, which was nice. And especially, again, given the fact that we hadn't really run much at all until this game, and it ended kind of with your second string running back, that's encouraging to me. And I think that, you know, we had a lot to build on in that first half. And the defense especially was a big part of that too, again, with those splash plays. But also just like, I mean, we only gave up 6 points in the first half.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the first half was so like encouraging. Everything was, you know, looking good. We were doing things right. And I think that, you know, even most of the third quarter, it seemed like that too. Our offense, you know, not so much. Our offense started to slow down. DK Metcalf completely disappeared in the second half, which I didn't like. I don't understand why the scheme to get him the ball just kind of stopped. Like, you know, we literally saw the other team force the ball to Justin Jefferson, and it works. You force the ball to your guy, and it's going to work. And so I really think we needed to keep with that. And I also think, yeah, our defense made a lot of splash plays, a lot of sacks, 3 turnovers, I think. Or it may have just been 2.
It was just 2 because they waved off that Jalen Ramsey touchdown.
Right, yeah, which was unfortunate.
That
was pretty cool to start out the game. But, yeah, I think that our defense was making some splash plays, and then it all kind of crumbled at the fourth quarter, and it all kind of was like, oh, this is the team I've been watching the first 3 weeks. So I don't know. What did you think of that?
Well, before we get to the fourth quarter, let's talk about like what happened to start the game. Obviously, we had some very good defensive line play again.
Yeah.
TJ Watt got home. Patrick Queen had that big sack on that first drive to kind of keep them to a field goal. That was huge because, I mean, like you said, they were just going after Justin Jefferson, and he was getting 10 yards of play, essentially. And the fact that we held him to a field goal there, I think really set the tone for the game. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is the Jets week all over again. They're just going to move the ball up and down the field. And they didn't really the entire first half after that point until, you know, the blocked field goal. But, you know, Patrick Queen had a nice game. I thought he was much better overall. Both, you know, he had the sack as well as in the run defense and the pass defense as well. I mean, I think that has to be encouraging for you too.
Oh, absolutely. I think he had the best game as a Steeler yet. That sack was awesome. He lit him up. And I think there was a lot of other plays. There's one play I'll get to. I'll wait because that's in the fourth quarter. But he made a lot of plays, like at the line. Pass protect, like his pass defense, still might not be the best, but it wasn't as glaringly obvious as it was in past weeks. So I think a lot of improvement there. And I think that there were, again, more communication issues on defense. Again, more towards the end of the game. Early in the game, Patrick Wilson and Peyton Wilson were communicating really well. Like there was a few times, specifically one play where like right before the snap, like they were showing something and they were switching it up, and Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson nodded to each other and they switched up assignments, and then it worked perfectly. And that's how Queen, I think, got the sack. So it was cool to see that. I just don't know why that, fizzled out at the end of the game.
Sure. TJ Watt got home to the quarterback for the second straight week. Nick Herbig had a very nice game.
Yeah.
Keanu Benton had a very nice game. And then I didn't even realize that Deshaun Elliott was coming back this week.
I didn't either.
And, he just showed up with an interception. Yeah. I was like, 25. Wait a second. He's back. I didn't even that never crossed my mind because I thought he was going to be out a little bit longer than that. But I think, even a little spoiler to the episode we've got coming next week. Your dad was like, I think that him being back there really shores up the defense a lot.
Oh, I completely agree. I think that he is just, he's almost like a Minka type character right now where he like holds the back of our defense together. And I think that he's almost like another, you got Patrick Queen who's leading the whole defense in the middle, but I think he's another leader in the back there. So I think having him back was awesome, especially, I've been liking Juan Thornhill a lot. He made some good plays in this game. There was one specifically at the goal line. I think he made a really nice play. But I think having Elliott back just helps the whole secondary like a ton.
It does. It does absolutely. Okay, so Kenneth Gainwell, 2 touchdowns, obviously the 80-yard bomb to DK.
Yeah.
Calvin Austin threw a heck of a block on that play too.
Yeah, he did.
That was very important. I'm not sure if that's a touchdown without that block, which he went out with a shoulder injury. He was actually taken to the hospital after the game, but it seems like he's okay. I don't know if he's going to be healthy in 2 weeks for this Browns game coming up, but if he is not available, that's a little bit of a wrench into things because I think he's been kind of filling that wide receiver 2 role that we've kind of been lacking this season, but I think he's been doing well. Hopefully we can get him back and healthy soon enough, but as far as the rest of the first half goes, it was just all Steelers. And, the Vikings kind of got their way back with the blocked field goal, and then they kicked the field goal of their own to be down just 14-6. But at the same time, you still feel like it's all Steelers. At that point, I was going to church. So I missed the entire third quarter, but I saw the entire first half. I'm like, okay, we'll see what happens. And I come back to the fourth quarter, and I was like, oh, we're still up by a ton. In fact, we're up even more now because the second Kenneth Gainwell touchdown had happened. So we're up 21-6 with, I think, 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And then the absolute bomb to Jordan Addison happens.
Yeah.
And it's like, what happened? What happened?
Which, one is like, I don't know how that blown coverage happened, but like I was saying earlier, like the miscommunication issues started up once again. And I'm for sure that's why that happened. And yeah, I don't like, again, it seems like with most of these games, like it's us beating us. Like we don't blow that coverage. I think that was a third down.
I don't know that for sure, but I wouldn't doubt it.
It might have been, or maybe it might have been a second down, but I thought it was third down. Like, this Minnesota team is a pretty good team, even with Carson Wentz. Like, I think that Carson Wentz's 2 interceptions, I think they both were tipped. So it's not like he was making bad throws. He actually made some really good throws, especially during their, comeback. But, it's unfortunate to see that these miscommunications are still kind of, haunting us. So I think that, everything just kind of fell apart there. But I will say, I want to shout out Peyton Wilson, who was running, I think, 22 miles per hour in that run to make that tackle, which was huge because it took a minute off the clock. Which, I remember before he made the tackle, I was like, whatever, he's going to score. And then he made that tackle and I was like, oh, wow, that was so important. And I love Peyton Wilson and he's 100% all the time. And I love that.
That very well could have saved the game.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, he took so much time off the clock. The defense actually stood up the next 2 plays after that before they did eventually end up getting into the end zone.
Right.
But, that should have been a walk-in touchdown for Jordan Addison. And he quite literally just ran him down. Very similar to that DK rundown against the Cardinals, I think, several years back when it was an interception. It was going to be a pick six. And DK just ran him down. And that was awesome. And Greg Olsen couldn't talk enough good about what that play did for the Steelers. And, again, in the moment you think, okay, that's a huge play. And looking in hindsight, it was probably even a bigger play.
Right, especially because of what happens. So that first down right at the goal line, this was the play I was going to mention, but I was going to wait to. Patrick Queen makes an awesome tackle behind the line of Jordan Mason, wraps him up And I think they go back maybe 1 yard. So that's first down. Second down, I'm pretty sure is when Carson Wentz tries to put on the outside and Juan Thornhill makes a nice diving bat to get that down. So then we're in third down. And did it go to fourth down?
I don't think it got to fourth down, but they did end up scoring.
Right.
But again, like we said, I think it took off 90 seconds off the clock. And again, this is it's the point of the game where it's like, okay, they need to find a way to score quickly because they need to get the ball back too.
Right. And so that was really encouraging to see. And then the touchdown they scored on, Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen, like after the touchdown was scored, immediately we're both going to each other like, what? Like, I thought you were doing that. So I think our defense looks so much better. I think we're making the splash plays and the sacks like we normally do. We just got to patch these holes of like just, like I feel like we're doing some of the extraordinary stuff, the sacks, the turnovers, splash plays. And then it's just like the ordinary stuff that like, every NFL defense needs to know how to do. I feel like we're just slipping sometimes. So if we can patch those holes, I think that this defense can get back to like, Pittsburgh Steelers defense.
Well, the whole thing is too, when you're up 24-6, you just have to play sound defense.
Yeah.
You don't have to go out and like, go get another takeaway necessarily. I mean, you should have that mindset, but at the same time, you can't let Jordan Addison go for 80 yards against you on a third down play like that.
Yeah.
Like that's the type of thing that these Mike Tomlin teams, they just seem to regress back to when they have 3 quarters of good defense. At the end of the game, here we're sitting here with heart failure again.
Right.
And it always happens. And we can't ever like go out of a win thinking, wow, that was a really dominant win. I'm really excited for next week. That really wasn't how I felt afterwards. I was sour again.
Yeah. Right. And yeah. And so then they score. And did they go for 2 right there?
They did, and they got it.
Right. Because it was a really great throw by Carson Wentz. Greg Olsen did a good job of breaking down that play. And then was the onside kick right after that?
No, because we got the ball back.
Okay. And what happened on that drive?
So Kenneth Gainwell, I think, had another like 10-yard run to kind of start that drive.
Yeah.
And then we get like to, around midfield. And it's to the point where it's now, okay, it's 4th and inches.
Yeah.
And the Vikings call a timeout thinking that, okay, we're going to run this play and try to win the game right there. Because at that point, Vikings didn't have enough timeouts equity to be able to stop the clock enough. And it's like, essentially, if we get that first down there, then we win.
Yeah.
Instead, we try to punt it away. Corliss Waitman boots it out of the back of the end zone, and I think we netted like 19 yards on that. And you set up the Vikings with a chance to go down and win the game for themselves, if not tie the game, with just a simple field goal. But interestingly,
so it's 24-14 when we punt the ball. Or no, was it already?
No, this was, at this point, it was 24-21.
Okay, right. So, yeah, I wasn't opposed to them kicking the punting there because, it was such a short field. I just think that, like, you've got to be able to tell your punter, like, I just don't know what our punter was thinking, kicking out of the back of the end zone. But, yeah, so then they go down, and, well, wait. Because at some point, there was 2 drives I'm trying to think of, because there was that punt.
The one that happened previous, though, we were at the 1-yard line, and we decided to go for it.
Yeah.
And we didn't get it.
Yeah.
And then, when we have a chance to win the game, we punt, and, again, we only net 19 yards. I was okay going for it at the goal line, because in that situation, it's like, okay, worst case scenario, you give them a 99-yard field, and if you get the touchdown, then you essentially just win the game right there. The second time, though, I was not a big fan of them punting. And I don't know. I don't think your dad was super opposed to that necessarily. I don't know what you thought about that. But in my mind, it's like, okay, if you can't get 1 yard with Kenneth Gainwell, who's over 5 yards a carry this game, again, they're probably going to be playing for the field goal. So you really don't have a whole lot of, I don't know. I was not a fan of them. I was not a fan of them punting there.
Yeah. If it was 24-21 when we punted, I also wouldn't have been opposed to them going for it, like putting it away. They didn't have enough timeouts. But one thing I wanted to talk about, just kind of with Mike Tomlin, is how I think he just over the past couple of years, I mean, for a long time, he just seems to coach kind of in a complacent way. Like when we're at the 1 yard line, and I loved this exchange, but when we're at the 1 yard line and Aaron Rodgers, like after the third down, immediately is just like, no, we're fine. And then the kick team comes out. Like Mike Tomlin's like, we're kicking. And Aaron Rodgers is like, no, we're not. Get him off the field, and kicks him off the field. And then we go for it. I was like, thank you. Because I'm like Aaron Rodgers sitting on the couch watching the TV and saying, Mike, get those guys off the field. We're going for the touchdown. Are you kidding me? Like it makes way too much sense. And Greg Olsen did not hold his words. He was like, yeah. Like he was like, it doesn't matter the outcome of this game. That decision is still a dumb decision to kick a field goal there. Like, and he was very critical of Mike Tomlin. And I'm glad. And I'm glad that we have a quarterback that is going to be like, no, I'm not going to leave the field. Like, are you out of your mind? So I'm so glad that happened because, you know, in recent years, it would have been like, all right, we're kicking a field goal. And it would have been it's just frustrating. And one other thing I wanted to point out, which I think could explain part of what happened to get Minnesota back in this game, but they like talked to Mike Tomlin at halftime, and he said that he says this all the time, but like he just really wants to play complementary football, like offensively and defensively. And Greg Olsen was explaining that, and he was like, what that means, he was like, obviously, like you think, oh yeah, you just want both sides to play good, like duh. And he was like, that's not really what it means. Complementary football is you want your offense to play in a way that benefits how your defense plays, or vice versa. And that got me thinking, and I want to ask this question because we've been kind of confused at how we've gone through multiple defensive coordinators through multiple years, multiple offensive coordinators, yet the offense has still, for the most part, looked the same. And we've still had the same issues. So it made me think, is our offense shrunk because Mike Tomlin is stuck on playing complementary offense for our defense, and then that ends up hurting our defense because we can't possess the ball? And it just got me thinking, like, is it not the offensive coordinators? Is it because we're so stuck on this complementary football and focusing on the defense being higher than the offense? And so we just play, don't turn the ball over on offense. And it just got me thinking that, like, I think he wants to play a type of way that just the NFL doesn't allow. Like, I'm going on a little bit of a rant here, but I remember, I think it was 2022, you went to the Panthers game, and Mitch Trubisky was playing, and it was a 21-play drive. How many minutes was it?
It took up the entire third quarter.
The entire third quarter. I think that's what Mike Tomlin wants to do. I think that's his idea of complementary football, is to possess the ball as long as possible. And I'm totally fine with that. But what we've seen is that unless you're playing, I think they ended up having 2 wins, Panthers, that doesn't work in the NFL, and he's still trying to fit that square peg into a circle hole. No matter who his offensive coordinator is, it seems like he's still on this complementary football because this is how our defense plays, so our offense has to complement that. And I think it might be hindering us, especially in the second half when we kind of, our offense like stalled out a little bit, and then our defense ended up letting it score. But I think that was a little bit eye-opening to how our offense has been run these past, especially like 3 or 4 years.
That was awesome. I want you to just keep talking. That was this exceptional. Now, okay, I'll weigh in on this. It's not complementary football.
No.
That's the whole point.
No.
It's not complementary football.
No.
And if that's what he wants, then he's not doing it.
No, and with this defense, what you want to know what complementary football is? Like, yes, possess the ball, but score. Like, just score. Again, I talked about this in our future episode, but it's like that playing not to lose mentality. I feel like we play with that when we have leads like this. You can't do that. Like, the whole playbook should be wide open. Whether you're up by 18 or down by 18, you should have every single play at your ability. You shouldn't be like, all right, bring it in. Let's not turn the ball over. I feel like Mike Tomlin's idea of that complementary is safe offense. Our defense will make splash plays. They'll get turnovers. We can't turn it over. Just don't turn it over. Like, I feel like that's how he looks at the offense. It's like, just don't get in the defense's way. Just score enough points and let our defense do its thing. That's not complimentary at all. Like, it's just, yes, possess the ball. I'm all for that. The way that we try and do it seems like it doesn't work that well. Again, we got beat in time of possession. Just score. Just keep scoring.
But that's the whole thing, though, is like whenever we get these big leads, I would bet my life savings that they're going to run it up the gut 3 times. And that's kind of what they do.
Yeah. And they completely are just like anything risky at all, we bring it in. And like we completely ditch targeting DK Metcalf. And I would love to see that statistic because I'm sure the percentage is high of how many times we've had double-digit leads that have come to close games. Like I can't remember, or I can remember all the times that it's been like, oh, like we might have a nice Steeler game here. Oh, it's all right. It's 3-point game.
Right.
Like, so I think that there's something in his coaching scheme with that complementary football that is failing our offense, that eventually fails our defense, that a lot of times fails us and causes, like this game was so close to a loss.
We had no business being a loss for 45 minutes.
No, we absolutely dominated this game. We were the better team almost the entire game, hands down. And I mean, yeah, the defense did its job after we went for it at the 1 yard line and didn't get it. I remember, like, I was like, after that 4th down, we didn't get it. We, Vikings had the ball again. I forget, there's not too much time left, but I was just like, here we go again. I was like, how did we get to this little, like what we were just saying, like, how was I so happy? And now I'm like this. And then I'm like thinking that in my mind. And then I'm like, oh, James Pierre picked it off. I was like, okay. I was like, all right, game over. Happy again.
And then the game's not over.
No. And then it's not over and it's just back. And it's like, oh my gosh, seriously? And I was like watching the replay and I'm like, sure, fine, whatever. But I'm trying to think, there were a couple other plays that happened in that final drive that were kind of big, but I can't remember.
Well, there was a lot.
Oh, the intentional grounding.
Yeah.
The Nick Herbig intentional grounding. That was awesome.
That was awesome. And that honestly was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Because it's a loss of downs. You know, they lost yards. I mean, they were just trying to get a field goal. They were not trying to go down and score and win the game. They were just trying to get into field goal range. And Nick Herbig shut that down immediately. And that play specifically was what won them the game. I mean, they really didn't give up many yards on that last offensive possession. But at the same time, again, why are we in that position in the first place? Why are we there to where our hearts are palpitating once again? You know, when we had a 24-6 lead coming in with 10 minutes left.
Right.
You know, there's no reason we should ever be in that position. And here, sure enough, once again, we are.
No, and we just can't beat teams comfortably anymore. Like, it's just something we don't do anymore, which is something that the Steelers used to do. Like, it was a guaranteed thing that you were going to beat 2 or 3 teams pretty handily every single year. And now it's like, we're lucky if we get one easy win. And so it's so unfortunate. But again, I think this week still is positive. I think that the one thing I'll say is I think there are a lot of teams that are where we are right now. And I think that a lot of teams throughout the first month are where we are right now, where it's like, okay, like we look like a pretty decent team. There's a lot of mistakes and errors going on, things that just need work and need fixing. And I think this is going to be the difference. And I'm not hopeful in this because we've proven to not do this, but I think that what happens at this point in the year, especially since we have a bye week, it's perfect timing. But teams that are like this, like we are, they adjust. Like they fix the little things that are, causing them some issues that cause them that one loss, and they get better. So 5 games later, if this same thing happens, it stays a blowout. I think that the problem is that when those teams get better after the first month and adjust after the first month, the Steelers don't. And this is the team we stay the whole year. And that's not how the NFL works. All the other coaches after the first month, even after the first game, are like, all right, here we go. We need to fix this. We need to adjust this. And by the end of the year, the teams that are ready for the playoffs are, fine looking teams that have figured out their schemes and are running it to perfection almost. And I think that the Steelers have struggled in that we have our schemes, and I'm not a huge fan of them, but we don't even perfect them. And we stay where we are right now when every other team that wants to win a Super Bowl is getting better.
The Ravens will be in playoff conversations in week 17.
Absolutely.
I guarantee you.
Yeah.
They're 1-3 right now. They just got blown out by the Chiefs. They will be in the conversation by week 17. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
I guarantee you. Will the Steelers be in that conversation week 17? Maybe not.
Right.
And that's, again, the regression to the mean. Starting off hot, just like we did last year. But how much are we going to maintain that, especially with the gauntlet in the last half of the season?
Yeah.
The Ravens, they've got their gauntlet out of the way. Sure, Lamar Jackson's hurt for a couple of weeks, but they're going to be back. They're always going to be back.
Yeah.
They will be in conversations by week 17.
Yeah, and I think people need to slow down on the Ravens. The Ravens are super underrated right now. They barely lost, and again, they are making some mistakes, and Lamar's going to be out for a bit, but they barely lost to the Bills, who are undefeated. They barely lost to the Lions, who, even though the week 1 thing was a little they're the same Lions. They're going to be in the playoffs. They'll probably win their division. And then they lost to the Chiefs, who are back, unfortunately. So that's 3 teams, one of which was in the Super Bowl, one of which was a 1 seed, and the other one was in the AFC Championship. So, I mean, I think he's like, they get a little bit of a break because they're playing the best teams in the NFL.
We played the Jets, the Seahawks, the Patriots, and the Vikings without their starting quarterback.
Yeah, which, to be fair, I think the Seahawks are now 3-1.
I think the Seahawks are good.
Yeah.
They're honestly rising to contender status. But again, we lost to them.
Yeah.
Our 3 wins are against, once again, the Jets, the Patriots, and the Vikings without their starting quarterback.
Yeah. So, and it's an international game. Anything can happen. So who knows with that. But yeah, I think that is the concerning thing. And I think that's the thing we're struggling with last year. And the thing that we were blind to in 2020 when we were 11-0, we didn't realize the only teams we were beating had losing records. So I think that's something that, we are going to have to adjust when we play the Bills, the Lions, the Ravens.
Right.
Like we play these teams that everyone's struggling with. And not to mention, even though the Packers have struggled in 2 straight weeks, they're a good team. The Colts are now apparently a good team out of nowhere. We do not have an easy schedule.
No, we don't. And we're going to have to figure it out here pretty soon. And it's time. It's time to get wins in these next couple of weeks. We're going to have a bye week episode. Again, we kind of plugged that with David's dad. Make sure you are tuned into that this upcoming week. But as far as this week goes, the Steelers did get a win, 24-21. A dub in Dublin.
Yes.
Absolutely love to see it. So the Steelers are 3-1. Coming into a very early bye week yet again. And we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do against the Browns, which we will have an outside perspective episode next week. So we'll have a double episode next week. This will be the only one for this week, but make sure you tune in next week for the state of the Steelers, as well as our outside perspective on the Cleveland Browns. Live from Boardman, Ohio, in David's basement, probably for what's going to be the last time in at least a while. David's heading down to Florida to begin a new job. Very exciting.
Yeah, very excited.
Very exciting stage of life for David DeSantis. Joined by Zane Bloom, myself, and we will see you guys next time on the Boardman Black and Gold podcast, which is sponsored by Zecca Enterprises, Crafting Furniture Solutions in Northwestern Pennsylvania. Call 919-406-4679 to turn your furniture problems into furniture solutions. We'll see you guys next week. Steelers win this one. And we've got a Here We Go Steelers big episode with David's dad coming up next week.